Hello everyone, this is Sony artisan Don Smith, and I would like to welcome you to this month's PhotoLogo image review. I've selected 6 images for this review today, and honestly, every one of them is pretty outstanding. And when I do image reviews in my workshops, I try to help people on areas of maybe where the image is lacking and what they could do or see a little bit better. But I also like to point out what's going right with an image and what's correct in an image. And hopefully through this review, you'll learn. Through these 6 images, there's not going to be a whole lot of things I can tell you to improve on, and you'll see as we go through these. But these are just suggestions on my end, and you can take it as that. I've been a professional photographer for over 40 years now, so I've thought a lot over the years about composition and light and things that I can do, and sometimes they're just the smallest little things that can improve upon your picture. So let's get started with this image, kind of one of these classic stairwell images, right? That we all look for. And this one is by Lynn Alves. This one is really cool. I mean, over the years, I've seen a ton of these done. I've tried doing some of these myself. This one is just really awesome. It looks as if Lynn is looking up. And one of the things I love pointing out about pictures is mimicking shapes. And you can see this, which almost looks like the shape of an eye, really kind of repeating as it goes around each one of these. We get less of that kind of stretch on the end, so to speak, of the circle. But you can see the 3 repeating concentric circles as we work deeper into the shot. One of the things I really like too is that Lynn decided to present this in black and white and not color. And I think that's cool for a couple of reasons. If you understand anything about tonality in design or photography or painting for that matter, is that dark tones tend to recede and bright tones tend to come forward. And you can go and look at any host of images and check that out, and you'll see that really is kind of one of those standards in art that really apply. So we've got this bright white around here, but it keeps wrapping tighter and tighter and tighter, drawing the eye up. And it's really just a blend of tones from white. We have this really kind of just dark neutral background. Now, I don't know if Lynn burned that down there or not. If she did, great job. The lighter tones are all in here where we want them to be to pull our eye eventually right down into here. The only little nitpick, Lynn, and this is really tiny, is I think in a perfect world, I would have loved to have seen a little more air between this line and the edge of the frame, and once again right up on tight and the edge of the frame. It just feels a tinge squeezed, but you know, you can take that for what it's worth. Don't throw the picture out. It's an awesome shot. That's easy. You could go into Photoshop and just extend the canvas a little on both ends. Take a look, and in the end, really, Lynn, it's your call. Awesome shot to start out with. Lastly, I do want to point out about the use of where we're dropping our photo logos, and I think this one works fine. I don't think I would have moved it anywhere over in here. It's out here. It's not really pulling the eye off. Again, we want the eye to work in through these concentric circles, and I think in that regards, it works. So great job, Lynn. Okay, let's move along to our next image, and it's from Rajani, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Rajani. Beautiful glacial lake. Anytime I see an image, because I've been around a lot of glacial lakes in my lifetime, and you see these really rich, beautiful turquoise colors, that kind of just signals that you're looking at some sort of a glaciatic lake. And glacial lakes are just absolutely beautiful to photograph, number one, because of this rich turquoise color. I like that Rajani took this nice low perspective and allowed these rocks here, just simple rocks, to create a bit of a foreground. You know, if the picture would have, if this area would have been blank and the picture would have just started in here and worked out, we would have lost a layer of depth, right? So you got to remember, you guys, in photography, we're working in a two-dimensional medium, even though we see in 3 dimensions. So the more you can add a layer to your shot, the better it is. I also want to point something else out about this lake back here and this lake back here. They connect in a sense. Our mind sort of, I call it not an illusion, but more sort of filling in the blank information. I call this an implied line. This lake is implied. Now, does it continue back behind that peak? I don't know. These could be 2 separate little lakes back here. It could be one massive lake that we're not seeing because of the intersection of the mountain. One thing I do want to point out, Rajani, and I opened this in Photoshop, so if I can get Photoshop to pop up here. I've already got your picture open. Again, we talk about tonality, and I know the light's sweeping from this area, but this is just kind of a big draw over here for my eye, wanting to pull it off in this direction. So I'm just in Photoshop. There's a number of ways you can do this. I just find this is a really simple technique. I've just got the lasso tool selected here. I'm just going to kind of draw around that hot spot, and I'm just going to give it a big feather. Let's change this to maybe 400 pixels. Okay, and just click OK. Now I have my layers channel up, and I'm going to come to the bottom of this little bouncing ball, and I'm going to pull up a curves, and we call this a curves adjustment layer, and you see it comes up with a mask. So if you're not familiar with curves, if I pull the line down, it darkens what I have selected. Okay, and if I push it up, it brightens what I have selected. Well, in this case, I want to kind of darken it down, and you can see I've really bent that curve. And that's because it is on an adjustment layer with that 400 pixel feather. Now, just look at the picture as I click the layer off. And you see that brightness. To me, it wants to just take my eye right up in that area of the picture. Now I've sort of balanced it, but I've still given the viewer the illusion that the light is coming in from that direction. Okay, once again, and like that. So just something to think about. That's after I do my general processing of any image. Then I start just looking around and seeing if there's any specifics within the image, what we call localized processing that I can use. And I'm always kind of thinking of creating balance, okay? Just so there's not one portion of the image that's feeling more visual weighted than the other. All right, this one from Candace, this one just blew me away. She starts out with the classic shot down the railroad, okay? Before I get talking about the rest of the image, this brings to mind, if you guys ever want to understand why it looks like railroad tracks eventually converge, and this one doesn't. This one kind of turns, but sort of converges right there. Check out a guy, well, just Google called the Ponzo, P-O-N-Z-O illusion. And it's going to come up about an Italian psychologist, Mario Ponzo. And his whole demonstration, and he figured this out in the early 1900s, was that the human mind judges an object's size based on its background, which is very interesting. And in any of the arts, I find that to really be true, be it drawing, painting, photography. So we know in our mind these railroad tracks really don't converge, but that's why the illusion is created. You can read a lot about the Ponzo illusion. It's really kind of an interesting study if you want to take the time to do it. You know, this shot is pretty cool because now you got the galactic core of the Milky Way up there. Processed really cool, by the way. It looks like we got I don't know what planet that would be up there shining. Venus, who knows? And then I look at again balancing. I let my eye come back here, and I love this, whatever this is, like a little dirt road or something, kind of just creates what I call a counterbalance from here over to here to the river. And everything is just, to me in this image, is really just done extremely, extremely well. This is a very well thought out composition, executed excellently and processed perfectly. So kudos, Candace. There's really nothing I would change. I'd love to have this shot in my portfolio. So, okay, but let's move on. This was an interesting image submitted by Eric and Cousineau, if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Eric. I'm assuming this is some sort of a plant. I'm not sure. I would look at this image and classify this more as a abstract. And it's a cool abstract because I love all these formations of whatever this is that you're photographing. The other thing I really love is that you decided to render this as a black and white. And I think it works perfectly, again, because of what I described earlier on, that the dark tones recede, bright tones come forward. So it really just forces our eye to focus in on this abstract. And that's the beauty of an abstract. Usually in a landscape, I tell people you have to have a focal point for your viewer's eye to fall on. But in more of an abstract, you really don't. In fact, I think for an abstract to succeed, you need to have your viewer look at it and not quite be so sure what they're looking at to begin with. That's the beauty of an abstract. I started trying to figure out, okay, what is this stuff like pollen blowing in the air? Or is this raindrops falling? I'm not sure. Are you shooting through some glass? It almost looks like some little droplets over in here. You've got me kind of stumped on this one. And that's the beauty, again, of an abstract. I think you did a great job. I don't know how close you came, again, and this is just a little nit, Eric. This was like the other picture I showed. How close you came to the top and or the bottom. Could you have included it and let that all complete? I don't even know where this really begins. I was looking for a stem. Is it going back that way, or is this kind of it? So very cool job. Love the fact you rendered it in black and white. The processing's it baffles me because this has a lot of delineation and contrast right here, but then you get here and it almost looks like some form of a lighting change, like something is just streaking in here a little bit. But again, I think that's cool. That adds to the illusion. Really cool job. And by placing your logo down here, I think that's perfect. It's not really fighting for attention. Maybe try reducing the opacity on it a smidgen, but it's not like my eye wants to jump off because this is so dominating. If the logo ever starts pulling your eye away, that's the time you want to start lowering the opacity on it. That's just kind of the guidelines I follow. All right, so let's go to the next one by George, which is a cityscape, and really kind of another cool shot. Looks like this was done in wintertime with all the snow obviously around here. We've got some waterfalls up in here, and I would call this maybe like a space needle. I've been in the similar ones in Seattle and a few other places. We have one just up the road from me in San Francisco. And what George did is, if we were to apply a rule of thirds grid over this, he really stayed inside the third. I almost wish George, and I know where your difficulty was coming from, so just hang in there with me. I almost wish you would have dead centered this. It's just slightly a smidgen off center, but I could see if you shifted and you centered it, say you put it right here, that would open up a little more of the falls, but then you're going to pinch in on whatever this spinning is. This like a Ferris wheel or some sort of spinning wheel here. And that might be time to just loosen your composition just a hair. But if you're going to go off of putting your main subject along the rule of thirds, I am not opposed definitely to centering a main object, and definitely the structure is the main object in this shot. Couple other things I want to point out. I love the transition up here of the lighter tones into dark, and look at how he let the dark tones complete up there. It just wasn't a bright tone that would let your eye go out of the shot. I actually, when I looked at where you placed the logo, George, it kind of created this connection from your logo to the falls over to here. And if you can see what I'm drawing is that triangle. I've talked about this in the past reviews. And this is visual motion in your picture. This will keep your eye, your viewer's eye, kind of bouncing through the images. We could even jump up to that bright point and counterbalance it and bring it off. Overall, I think, again, and I don't know if you've done a square crop on this, so go back and see if you have a little bit more to where you could possibly center that and just see how you like it. In the end, it's really your guys' art. And it's your call. I think I've saved one of the coolest shots to the end. Timo, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, Timo, but you just absolutely killed it with this shot. I love this. Just peak action of these two birds going at it. And it looks like you converted this to black and white too, which again now we have the light tones, but the black tones actually dominate because they're taking up so much of the frame. And look at, that is just cool. It's just tack sharp in there. You absolutely just bang, just nailed this. If anything, and this is just tiny, I would probably burn this snow down just a little bit, right? Especially there. I never on the edges of my pictures want my viewer's eye to be able to be tugged out. And remember, your viewer's eye wants to go to the brightest portion of the scene. And I just think there's so much of a dominance of the black, it's holding my eye. But if you were to burn that off just a little bit, darken it down. When I say burning, I'm using an old darkroom term. Even right along the edge there, you could certainly try it. Again, I think where Timo chose to place his logo is beautiful. I think if it was down over in here too much, it would start tilting the picture a little too much. It's just classic. I would love to hear your backstory on how you shot this image, if you were just out there and you saw this happening. Just a really, really cool shot in the way I wanted to end this. So I would just congratulate all 6 of you. These are just 6 really super strong images, you guys. Keep them coming. I'm having a blast looking at your work. I wish I could offer more suggestions to what to do in improvement, but you guys are doing such a great job, is why I also want to point out why the pictures work. I think instead of just saying this is a good shot, you got to explain why it's a good shot and what's going on and making this work. And hopefully these tips have helped you. I look forward to doing this again next month, and as long as you guys are digging it, we'll just keep this rolling. And until next time, everybody, take care.